Are you crazy? Do you like to party? Are you a dirty slad?
It's upsetting. What do you know about Slaadies?
That you told me they exist, they have a dumb name, and that they're somewhat frog-like. That is
so,
the sum
so
total.
your intro was unnecessarily accurate.
Wait, what? Did they really like to drop Molly and drop it like it's hot?
They are beings of pure chaos.
Oh my god, they really are spring breakers. James Franco would be so proud.
Yeah, it's shockingly accurate.
That's kind of the theme of D&Dummies, which is the podcast you're currently listening to, where I just hear a name and I make a silly, completely out-of-pocket joke that accidentally ends up being right.
Yeah, he also said in a car ride, when I was telling him about the Spider Queen Lolth, he was like, do it for the Lolths. And I was like, Darcy, how did I never put it together? That's something.
Was that the Spider Queen that was tied to that prison escape thing?
Yes, in Out of the Abyss, the opening.
Okay. Right, and the Spider Riders and the cool biker gang we made.
Yeah, D&D has a tend to get out of control. So, Slaadi is the plural of slad, but...
What is it, like lads and laddies from like an Irish...
I guess, I don't know, we're going to call them slads, because...
Yes, lads.
Alright, so...
That's how we decided what we were talking about today, by the way.
Yeah.
He rattled off a few words, and I was like, immediately, yes, slad, slay.
Yeah, Slaadi. Like daddy.
You're dressed so slutty today.
Oh my goodness, you slot.
By the way, I'm just imagining like Kermit the Frog in a thong right now. So
they are bipedal frogs.
So I was pretty much on point.
They tend to their attacks tend to be bites or slashing attacks with their claws.
Again, it sounds a lot like Spring Breakers still.
They're this weird thing. They are beings of pure chaos. Basically, chaos was just going crazy. The realm of limbo is kind of what...
Okay, is chaos, just from Warhammer stuff, is it a sentient energy, like force, like the force of the dark and the light in Star Wars, or is it...
It is literally the concept of chaos.
So it's not a sentient force like Cthulhu-y type of thing. It's just like gravity.
Yeah, kind of. It's like it would be sentient if every rule said it shouldn't be. And it would be if it's kind of Alice in Wonderland, topsy-turvy. In Limbo, literally you can make like a charisma check, I think it is. And you can start molding the world to be whatever you want. Like you just start making grass like grow and like worlds start being thing.
Yeah.
Apparently what's described in a lot of things is that you'll see rocks collide into each other, combust into fire, then melt into water and wax, and birds that will fly off, and it's just like a storm of just
It's
random.
a bad trip.
Yes. And the being that's in charge of order, called Primus.
I think I say Karen.
Yeah, Primus. He is in charge of, like, order, everything. He was like...
And he leads the Autobots, right?
He does kind of have robots. So you're
I'm so good at this.
You're shockingly close.
If this was a game show, I'd be...
What do you think the world that he rules over is called?
Well, my gut says Cybertron, but I'm going to say his name is Primus, and it's something to do with order or death row. I don't know.
Wow, that's so much better. Mechanus.
So,
yeah.
Is he just Optimus Prime?
Kind of. But they're more clockwork robots. But Primus is like not...
You mean like Cogman from the best Transformers movie?
Mm-hmm. He's referencing the fifth one, by the way. The last one.
Is it the fifth or the sixth? I don't know.
They're a fever dream. It's impossible to tell. There may have been a seventh and no one noticed.
I know there's a Bumblebee.
We're not addressing it.
The first one and the third one are good, and Bumblebee is okay. The end.
So... like Primus isn't a god. It's a weird thing. Like he has the power of a god.
No, he just has the matrix of leadership.
But basically every Modron has a rank.
Modron.
That's basically his creations.
So they're not a big head that floats around and tries to stop superheroes?
That's MODOK.
Oh, he's the robot made by Hank Pym.
Ultron.
Oh, dang it.
Gosh dang it. They're little spherical robots, basically a monodrone. They do one thing. Literally, they can only do one thing at a time.
Oh, the T-Spheres from Mr. Terrific.
Kind of. They honestly are spherical.
Yeah, it's like the game sphere. It's spherical.
But then, if like a high-ranking one dies, everyone else moves up one rank, and now they can do two things. There's like duo drones. Primus is just the infinite top level.
So he's the robot at the top of the food chain, but like if he died or what have you, then the second below would become the new Primus. And it's literally your rank is based on the number of calculations you're allowed to do or can do.
Yeah, you're capable of doing, and then the world is just able to crank out more mono drones.
So instead of like giving you a medal, if you got like a rank up, they would just give you like another processing core.
Yeah, and they're like this weird organic mechanical mix.
I really wasn't expecting robots.
Well, they're order. And literally, there's a kind of subdivision on there called the, oh darn, what are they called?
That's a weird name.
Oh, they're like the Inevitables, that's what they're called.
Oh, right. I remember that movie with Dash and Jack.
They are like 3 giant, like, Galactus-sized robots. Oh. And basically, whenever the gods are, like, at conflict, where it's like a god of dead or the god of the death, and, like, god of death and the dead, like, they're in conflict, you bring in the Inheritors, and they are... Or, the Inheritors.
And now we're killing Spider-Man.
You bring in the Inevitables, and they're the judges that decide between godly squabbles.
So like the robots from Eternals.
Yes.
I haven't seen the movie, I've just seen clips, so... But I've read some of the comics.
But basically, back to Slaads and Limbo.
Yes.
Chaos was doing everything, and nothing really could survive there unless you wanted it to, in which case it could.
Unless you were Crazy Frog. I
hate you so much.
Oh my god. I just realized as I would, like, the second before I said it, I was filled with so much joy.
Oh my goodness. So basically he was like, I hate chaos because it was spreading across other dimensions.
And he was like, if only someone did a cover of I'm blue, if I was green, I would die. And I know that's not really the lyrics. I just like making you mad.
Okay. So basically he built a stone.
Or did he do the Six Flags?
I don't
With the
know.
old man dancing? Remember?
I don't know what...
Remember the old man that would dance for the Six Flags? He's like, oh, come get on the bus. And he starts dancing. He's a...
No.
People will remember.
Look. He built a stone...
It's back when Taco Bell had those pearlescent colors inside.
You remember Arrival? Like the giant spaceships that would arrive in Arrival?
Yeah.
Basically, he built...
The big rocks.
He built one of those comprised of, like, pure order.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, it's a fragment of his plane, and he chucked it into Limbo. It's like, that'll bring it under control. But
so you took like a tablet of bleach into a septic tank.
Yeah, here's the thing. Because it shouldn't work, it did.
This is some real Warhammer orc logic, to be honest.
But then, because it did work, it didn't. So basically, it was like, it started coalescing chaos into these physical beings.
Because that's both working and not working. Because it's more order, but it isn't bringing order. Because they're actually chaotic, even though it's an order form of chaos.
Yes. And thus... the Slaad were made.
This is, by the way, this is like the first time someone in like a college math class was like, and we're going to do imaginary numbers now. I was like, why the fuck would we do that? Don't we have enough regular numbers? And they were like, yeah, but let's just think about it. This is that. I was like, yeah, but it shouldn't work. So it does work, which means it won't work because now it's supposed to work. But it shouldn't work, which means now we're going to change it. And I just want to punch whoever came up with that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty darn stupid.
This actually, so the Order robots, just a side tangent, in Star Wars, there are basically galaxy-sized robots that are, thank the Maker. Those are the makers.
Oh.
It wasn't, this is Legends, but it's not always just like, Anakin is back. Like, when other droids say thank the Maker, some of them have douchebag makers. They're like, the Maker is their deity, and it is like it would consume galaxies to create robots. And so it's basically like a giant, like... From what I remember, it's been years, but it was like the Jawa Sandcrawler going through space, but it's just a gigantic robot that's creating more robots. And it's just eating and essentially pooping. It's like a cell. It's creating more life, but just because it's what it does, and then it just continues on through the galaxies and doesn't care about what it's left in its wake.
Primus does have a kind of weird thing that no one knows why it does it. It's called the Modron March. Basically, it sends an army...
It's a parade, right?
Yeah, that goes throughout the dimensions... just going around in a clockwork mansion. Most of them die, but they'll just go out, look at stuff, and walk away. And no one's really sure why they do it. Some think that it's like exhaust, like they have to burn off a certain amount of the population.
But when I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see the Modoc Parade? What?
Modron March.
Modron March. You know what I'm referencing.
I really don't.
Oh, well, people who've listened to music will.
Look, but basically, the Slaads got made, and the ones that came from what they called the spawning stone.
And they only show up once during spring. They go to Tijuana. They don't clean up after themselves. They drink a lot of beer. They get questionable tramp stamps. And then they go back. Because these Slaads are here to party. It's spring break.
There's layers to what you just said.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the end to the second 22 Jump Street. That's what I'm thinking of.
Huh.
It's the big spring break fight. Like, the way you're describing it, I'm just imagining the chick that's the villain.
Well, there's kind of two primary variations of Slaad. There's the ones that come from the spawning stone and the ones that were made afterwards. Kind of like vampires.
Slaads that are always Slaads, and then Slaads which are good people. Then you get them a little drunk and they turn into total Slaads.
Holy crap, you're like shockingly close.
God, I'm telling you. I'm an idiot savant at Dungeons and Dragons.
Really, that's kind of your whole shtick. Basically, the ones that come from the stone, they have a little piece of the stone in them. Mm-hmm. It's typically called a control gem, because apparently if you remove it from their brain and hold it, they have to do whatever you say. Like, they are bound to you. Basically, in D&D terms, they're charmed by you perpetually. And so you could wear it as a brooch, and basically they're just your slave. But these things are powerful.
Yeah, I gathered that. They are crazy frogs, after all.
But there's a second type of Slaad that can kind of come from this. Granted, there's variation of, like, stats, but the second type is ones that literally you got scratched by one of them.
You're a were-Slaad.
No, worse. Basically, if you get scratched by, I believe, a red Slaad.
Sure.
You slowly start... Or, no, if you get scratched by a blue Slaad, you start turning red and start turning into a red Slaad.
Sure.
If you get scratched by a red Slaad, you start getting sick, and basically a tadpole has been placed inside your blood. It grows and jumps out your chest, killing you. It's a chest burster, yeah.
I can safely say that I didn't expect that.
And it becomes a blue Slaad. There's exceptions that if you were like a magic person, you were attuned to a lot of magical stuff, it comes out green and basically has magic stuff. And then it can be like, I'm going to want to become more powerful, and we'll just do a ritual to turn itself into what's called a gray Slaad, which is kind of a Batman equivalent. They tend to wield great swords.
Okay.
And then that can become a death Slaad beyond that, which is basically undead, super powerful, level 20, just crush everything.
So, just as a thing that you said, but I didn't want to interrupt your cornucopia of Slaads, the way I would flavor it, were I told to, write the flavor text for a Slaad burster, would be that, and since, like, I'm thinking frogs, something like poison frogs, that's just what my mind immediately goes to, even though I'm sure I think you've told me there's already a species that's basically poison frog people.
Grung, yes.
Which have somehow no relation to these frog people.
No, they also have no relation to bullywugs or froghemoths, which are also frogs.
Great. Anyway, I instead of a chest burster, because that's sort of like an obvious cliche, I would have it where basically at some point it's ready to burst, and so it releases a poison sac that melts you from the inside, so you like deflate and fall off like the film on top of pudding, and it's just all that remains after you've melted away like acidic waste.
Yeah.
Because that's more terrifying, in my opinion, and isn't a clear Ridley Scott ripoff.
Yeah, well, these secondary, they're technically more powerful, the secondary ones.
Wait, has there ever been a in-universe, or, I mean, I imagine there has been, like, a tabletop example of, like, oh, you should be getting slottier by the minute. Like, you're about to start posting really lewd photos on Insta-Slaad or whatever. But, like, has there been something where someone's like, I don't want my character to die, or there's a named character they didn't want to kill off?
That's the thing. If it was like you have a tadpole growing inside you, they could theoretically remove it. However, and this is just, it's not anywhere in the lore, but I would put it, because there was an Alien comic that did this recently, that if you remove the thing and like you survive the thing, you basically can sense wherever it is, and like you two have a connection. Because I like that idea. But here's like, it's actually kind of the opposite of vampires, where like vampires, like, the more prime and ancient you are, the more powerful you are. Meanwhile, if you got turned by one of them, you're like half as powerful.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, where if one had like a control gem straight out of limbo, got you, you turned into one, you do not have a piece of the stone in you, so you can't be controlled.
So you're stronger than them.
Yeah, and you can turn back into your original form whenever you want. Like, you can just turn back into your human form, or whatever creature you were before.
So I was actually thinking, if someone put a tadpole in you, right? And let's say it's like, this is how it works, but it doesn't work. Couldn't you just be like, actually, because this is supposed to work, it shouldn't work? And then it would be like, fuck, he got me, and it just wouldn't work. Could you, like, out-logic it?
That
like,
goes up to the DM, but I would 100% allow that.
I would just look down at, like, my arm and be like, oh, this is definitely going to turn me into a Slaad, and be like, oh, fucking now I can't do it.
I would kind of go, like, how I said Limbo, you can kind of warp it to your reality. I kind of like the idea that as it's, like, doing that, you could be like, I'm going to control what you're turning me into.
Well, just be like, I now have, like, frog spots, and I can jump high, but...
I would totally let you basically become, like what you said, a were-Slaad, where basically you can just turn into a monster form.
Well,
because these things are basically the size of... Depending on blue Slaads, they're the size of the Hulk, and they have Wolverine bone claws.
Why the fuck would a frog have bone claws? Do frogs have bones?
Why are they? Yes, they have bones.
Yeah, I guess we dissected fetal pigs in high school, not frogs.
Oh,
yeah, I had it during my lunch break, so I smell like formaldehyde every time I was trying to eat tater tots.
Oh, jeez. But yeah,
but what I was trying to get at, aside from like the whole being able to logic loop it, do you remember in Star Trek there's a species where essentially like a sentient like species will just inhabit a different body every several hundred years, and the only change that happens is you get some like neck and face spots that come from it.
Oh, I think
like in Deep Space Nine, there's
I think
one that she even was back whenever Spock and Kirk were around. She was there, like in the academy, and there's like a whole, I don't remember the name of the species.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's like this weird reincarnation.
Yeah, that's what I would assume, that like if you could negate a Slaad through charisma, willpower, or science, that it would essentially just give you that effect of like you have some spots on you and like you have a few of their traits that transferred in, but you were just you.
Yeah, well, I thought about, before I knew the fact that you didn't get a control gem when you were scratched, I thought, man, what if you were being turned, you just put into your brain, you like had them remove the gem, you held on to it, and you're like, I am now controlling what I become. And I thought like that would be kind of an interesting premise for a character.
Yeah.
But also, then it's kind of an interesting thing because they can basically scratch someone and turn them into...
Can I actually... These guys sound less like frogs and more like the alien from Neopets.
Wow, yeah.
I made a Scientology reference today.
I think I showed you the redesigns I did. Those kind of Guillermo del Toro
Yeah, you
inspired.
showed me a couple. By the way, I don't know if people know this, but you have a website where you do redesigns of characters that are either outdated or they don't quite fit their description. And it's just alternate designs and some flavor text and stuff. And I, as someone who doesn't know a lot about D&D, I think they're interesting. I'm like a science fiction and comic book guy, so I can appreciate the creative work that goes into it. What's the name of the website? What's the URL?
That would be, I believe... Oh, darn.
I'll buy for time while you look for it on your phone.
Or we could just cut this audio part out. Gosh dang, I still have the premise for Us. Like the whole plot for that.
Yeah, I had him look up Jordan Peele's story because I was like, why were there sewer people? I'm driving. I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah, and it turns out beings that were connected to others, much like the Slaads would be connected to their... let's see.
Yeah, what a weird premise for a movie. So, let's go ahead and get... What's the name of that website where you post your write-ups and ideas?
That's D&Dummies at WordPress.com. Let me double check that. Make sure.
Yes, it is the letter D, the word and, the word dummies, .wordpress.com.
Yeah, and I have an article about a Sararak and why he's awesome. Granted, it like covers a third of what I actually like about him, but
yeah, so like
it's still massive.
When you have ideas that you're like are maybe too short for a full episode, you've kind of been chucking them over there or doing write-ups about them. Or if there's something we cover and then you forget something, then... Yeah.
What I want to do is a long-form, just video cataloging, and I think I just put it on YouTube or something, but it's just like a long-form, like, this is the story of a Sararak.
Which, I mean, people might be listening to this on YouTube.
Yeah.
You ever think about that?
Just because I know people watch, like, I've seen people watch 2-hour-long videos about Dark Souls lore. And I listen to that to fall asleep. So I could totally see someone...
I feel like I would have really depressing dreams if I did that.
Yeah, I get more depressed when I listen to Elden Ring just because I'm like, this is not as good as Dark Souls.
I mean, you could just listen to something positive to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It doesn't all have to be like Edgar Allan Poe and SCPs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Game Grumps has been something that I would go to, but...
I usually listen to doom music.
How is that better?
Well, because it's not depressing, first of all, and it's so active, it stimulates my brain and exhausts me, because my brain is like, this is so cool, and my brain's like thinking about all the different drums and guitars, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is too chaotic. What am I, some type of Slaad? And then I fall asleep. See how I brought it back?
Yeah.
Look at everyone, I'm a mall cop, because I'm on that segue.
I was wondering how you were going to make a Paul Blart reference.
Paul Blart Mall Slud.
I'm so glad none of these are going to be part of the thumbnail.
That's what you think.
I refuse.
I'm just going to put Paul Blart as a frog
I
man.
refuse to let Crazy Frog on a Segway be the thumbnail.
No, it's going to be Paul Blart with a frog head. And a mustache. And then people will look at it and be like, what is this? It'll be so chaotic, like a Slaad.
Okay, I can tell you, if I saw a thumbnail that chaotic, I would steer away from it. I'd probably click, do not recommend this channel to me.
Well, you know what? That's just the risk we have to take. When you have something to say, your art speaks for itself.
No. Have you seen modern art? There was a guy who put, like, literally a toilet, like a newly bought toilet, got paid multiple millions of dollars for it.
I'm telling you, we should be... Before people realize that NFTs are pointless and stupid and killing the planet, like the rich people do, everyone else already realizes it, or like these ridiculous modern art installations, we should just go do something very cheap and stupid, collect the money, and then watch their financial consultants be like, I don't know how you went bankrupt, Nicolas Cage.
I don't know. We're making a whole bunch of nonplussed monkeys.
And then I can convince him the only way to get his money back is to make that Tim Burton Nicolas Cage Superman movie, and I can finally get what I want.
No, don't push that.
I am going to push it. Nicolas Cage is my favorite Superman, and the sluds would agree.
I should also say, there's a city in Limbo that is not made by the Slaadi.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the Gith, which were basically like, they were a race.
I'm aware of what they are. They're like, they're in between a MP4 and a JPEG. Oh, no, they're from Mass Effect.
They're basically space elves, not confused with astral elves that Spelljammers added, which I do not like.
Astral elves? You mean the Awoken?
Okay, basically, whenever they escaped being slaves, they're like...
Always slavery in this.
Oh yeah, it's a thing. Specifically...
Slaves and frogs.
Specifically, Mind Flayers are the ones enslaving them. It's like, we want your brains, because we eat them.
Are they especially smart?
No, but they were a race that were literally made for the purpose of having brains and...
Oh, so they were like how chickens are fatter than they used to be because they've been bred for food?
Yeah. These guys, like, people think they might have been humans and then just got bred to have bigger brains.
So,
but now...
Wouldn't that inherently make them smarter?
Well, then they started getting psychic. They rose up, kicked the butts of everyone, and like, okay, we need to leave and found our own people.
Wait, so it's... Not to jump onto the topic that we're going to do in a future episode, but is Spelljammers the same as D&D? Like, same continuity, essentially?
Kind of.
Like,
Spelljammers is like...
Or is it like Warhammer and Warhammer 40k?
I talked about crystal spheres.
Mm-hmm.
Spelljammers is literally like the reason it's different from just a spaceship, it literally lets you pass between crystal spheres.
Anyway, but yeah, I'm trying to think... Sluds.
Yeah, so...
Slaad the Impaler. Nice.
But basically, Gith were like, one group went off and like, we're gonna build a monastery and be like, because now we don't have to fight anymore.
Yeah, they're sexy psychic elves.
And so they went to Limbo and was like, let's use our willpower to make a giant city that is like, in the official artwork for it, it looks like the Jedi Temple got...
You need to Google the Dreaming City from Destiny 2.
It looks like basically a giant diamond Jedi Temple.
You need to look up the Dreaming City from Destiny 2.
Looking it up.
Because you're describing a thing that I already know, because I'm now realizing it's probably based on the thing that you're describing. The Awoken are already sexy space elves with dubious powers.
It looks like the whitewashed version.
Let me see which image you're looking at.
I'm like looking at like all of it, you know.
Hang on, I'll pull up the right.
Yeah, but the other ones were like, screw that, we're gonna kill everyone. and they became space pirates and kind of nomadic and violent. And now, genetically, because they've been apart for so long, they are genetically different.
Ah, the old Romulan and Vulcan situation.
Yes. One is all peaceful and the other one's all violent.
Wow, that is actually the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's just... And they have pointed ears. Differences of these guys are green and have tiny noses for no reason. So yeah, that's Limbo, that's Slaads. There are also leader Slaads. Like, literally, like, Slaads that got so powerful, like, I'm gonna bend Limbo to my will, I have a kingdom, other Slaads obey me because of how powerful I am. And they never look like frogs.
So, like, how the Hive, when you kill enough, you get, like, your own pocket dimension that is controlled by your will.
Kind of.
And when you die, you can just go back there and recoup and come back, which isn't necessarily what you just described, but that's a cool thing.
Yeah. One of them basically looks like a space vampire. Actually, that D&D video game thing I showed you with Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah.
Michael Clark Duncan was one of those, like, things.
Oh, okay.
Another one is just kind of this yellow slime that's, like, perpetually, like, growing and amorphous and shifting and everything because it's chaos. And of course there can always be, like, more. It's like the Abyss in D&D. It's literally has infinite layers. So there's always a new demon lord that no one's ever heard of, and it basically just gives you,
free reign.
Yeah, it gives you the option to make stuff, and that's why, like, when D&D first came out, Demogorgon was not, like, in charge of everything. Instead, it was a thing called a wolf spider that was in charge, and he got killed by someone else who was apparently always there, and that was Demogorgon, and he took over.
Okay, well, I can't find any of the images I was looking for, so you'll just have to sort of look at those images there from the Gambit multiplayer, man. But it sounds sort of like whenever Necrons got the refresh in Warhammer, where they're like, yeah, you're controlled by these things, and then they were like, nope, we're rising up against them and enslaving them, and there are power batteries now, and that's why we have individuality. That was for a gameplay thing, because why did Necrons
This is
fight
the official
Necrons?
artwork for the city.
I thought you were just showing me more of the stuff from Destiny. So.
No, that is official D&D artwork of what the city looks like.
Well, it's pretty clear to see the Awoken are basically your sexy space elves.
It's basically a Star Destroyer made by Batman.
Interesting.
It's just this huge armored tank in space.
So, in summary...
Also, Gith wield things called silver swords.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're kind of like lightsabers, or more like vibroblades.
Sure.
But they can sever what's called a silver cord.
Uh-huh.
Basically, if you're trying to astral project somewhere...
They can cut your projection?
They can... Well, if you die while you're astral projecting, you just get sent back to your body. If your cord gets cut, you just... Like, your consciousness is stuck.
Like ghosts.
Essentially, but you're stuck...
Wait, are ghosts a thing in D&D that aren't just that?
Yeah.
There's too many ways of things being done. Like, there's like 35 ways that things can happen.
It's because it's kind of like X-Men, where it's basically like a guy's like, yo, what if there was a mutant that was like the first mutant, and there's like 8 first mutants? Yeah,
The first mutant is Apocalypse. I don't care if people try to say its name more. It's fucking Apocalypse, all right?
Yeah, well,
the end.
It's just like...
That's my thing.
Or like,
it's Apocalypse. I'll fight people on it.
Or like Star Wars, where it's like,
Namor's
what
just
if there was like
rapist from the ocean?
Where it's like, who trained Palpatine? There's like 3 different people that like people like in different versions.
But that's more just because they can't get their ducks in a row.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's been going on since the 70s of people being like, oh, what if ghosts were like this? And it's like they're already that. And it's like, oh crap, just call these poltergeists and we'll move on.
There's a difference between a ghost and a poltergeist in D&D? What is this,
Not
phasmophobia?
really. It's just in terms of the fact that poltergeists can move things with their mind, like telekinesis.
I'm aware of what a poltergeist can do. I've busted ghosts.
That's literally the only difference. But there's revenants, which are kind of cool. It's literally like you killed them, they had unfinished business, and they're like, oh, so I guess you have to be a ghost. And he was like, no, I'm getting my body back.
Yeah, I just played Apex Legends.
And like lifts. Shadow of War would be a prime example, like the main character.
Yeah, Talion.
He would be a revenant technically.
Would he?
But
because
also,
he's bound with Celebrimbor.
Well, there's an interesting thing about revenants. You kill them, they don't, like, they're already dead.
Yeah.
But you destroyed their body, so they need a new one. And so they literally find any other dead body and hop into that, and it just rises from the grave and starts hunting you down.
We should talk about Revenants next time, because that sounds pretty rad. Also, in Apex Legends, literally the character of Revenant, when he dies, he gets backed up into another body, and he just hunts you down and finishes the thing.
Yeah. Also,
he's voiced by, like, one of my favorite voice actors. Him and the guy who does the voice for Caustic, they're both, like... I think one of them's actually in Shadow of War. I don't remember which one. I get them confused. One of them is Dr. Samuel Hayden from Doom, and the other one isn't.
That might be something we have to do after Domains of Dread, because I also want to talk about mummies, and they're kind of weird.
I mean, we all know what Domains of Dread are. They're like regular domains, but they never take their helmet off.
No, that's Domains of Mandalorian.
No, but he does take his helmet off. Carl Urban, you don't see his face.
Does he never take it?
You see him put it on, but he's in shadow the whole time, like in the original comics, the 2000 AD comics, where you never see his face. It's actually a running gag, sort of like how Master Chief takes off his helmet, and if you use console commands and break out, he just takes off his helmet, and there's another helmet underneath.
Yeah, it's like I just kind of like the idea of I am the law being like whenever someone tries to take the rules lawyering, it's like technically like if a DM was like, oh, so now you have a control gem in your head because you got turned into a sled. It's like technically it wouldn't be there. It's like the DM's just like, I am the law.
I'm Constable Depression.
I don't like words you just used, but yeah, that's sleds, and unintentionally it's also
Optimus Prime and
Modrons and the Gith, and a little dash of Spelljammer stuff.
Yeah, we wanted to save Spelljammers for like a longer episode, and we just kind of wanted to...
And also because I haven't done I still need research on what helms are.
Helms? Like a realm?
No, helm. Like, literally on a ship. Like, you helm a ship. But apparently there's more to it than...
This is sounding a little bit like the not Destiny, the free-to-play one. Not Warframe. What is it? Who cares?
Destiny free-to-play?
It's a free-to-play Destiny equivalent that I think predates Destiny a little bit. It's third person instead of first person. There's 3 classes. You can pay to do
I think that is Warframe.
No, Warframe is something else. This is sci-fi. Warframe...
Oh, was it...
Well, maybe it's Warframe and Warface I'm getting confused. Warface is the Crytek one. Warframe is the one I'm thinking of. It's the third person Destiny
I was also
equivalent.
thinking of Anthem, which...
R.I.P.
Yeah, that...
We barely knew ye.
It would have been a great single-player game.
That's what you can say about most EA games that flop.
Yeah, except for The Sims. I think Sims would actually probably do better if it was able to go multiplayer.
I think you should be allowed to go, like, visit certain people's things and just sort of, like, be like a malevolent deity. But there's, like, a certain chaos meter. If you do too much, it kicks you out earlier. Or you can do little things or maybe even positive things and stay for a while. And then it'll come back and be like, oh my gosh, all of my Sims are now, like, super successful. Or you'll come back and, like, have the town burned down, but then we kicked the guy out, and so everything's under control. But basically, Meowsabub, which in this case would be, like, LolMaster69XXX came over, logged into your server, and was a real goblin. Goblins are bad in D&D, right? So I can still say that?
Yeah, typically...
Like, do they get upset when someone kicks them out of their Fortune 400 company and starts slowly killing them at the Macy's Day Parade?
What?
Do you know how much I've sacrificed?
Oh.
He's the Green Goblin.
I was thinking, it's like, is this like a news thing?
First we attack his Slaad.
Well, if you were fighting a mummy, attacking his heart would actually be a beneficial thing.
I knew that. I'm the Green Goblin.
It's kind of like a Davy Jones situation.
Ah, where he's in love with crabs.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, yeah, this has been D&Dummies, where I was the dummy. Although I think right now our host is feeling a little bit...
You were, like, pretty spot on with a lot of this,
it should be D and Idiot Savant.
That's why that's why I really like being like, what do you think they are? And just seeing how close you get, because you get shockingly close for a lot of these.
If there was a game show, get Howie Mandel to host accidentally getting D&D facts right, and tell you what, I'll clean them out. Yeah, this has been D&Dummies. We don't really know what we're going to do next episode. We kind of come up with a couple things, and we decide what we're going to do on the spot. But we're going to be more consistent about all these.
I mean, it's basically kind of a running joke. For the past, I think all of our episodes, actually, we say the next one's going to be Spelljammers.
Yeah, which is why I've stopped saying it, because I love sci-fi, and you're always like, yeah, Spelljammers, and we'll sit down and be like, oh, we're not doing Spelljammers now. I primed you for it for no reason.
This was going to be Spelljammers, but then it was like, nah, we don't have a whole lot of time. The window of time between when we need to do other things, don't have enough time to cover Spelljammers. And then he was like, let's be slots.
And I think that we can all agree that what happens in Tijuana stays in Tijuana. Right, Slaads?
I don't like just how you're...
Is it too chaotic?
The fact that you were like, oh, so some of them are always Slaads, but some of them just become it occasionally.
Yeah, well, when you get them drunk.
And I was like, dear mercy, that's like spot on. That's literally the two types. I was like, does he know these things?
I'm like...
Am I the dummies?
I'm like those stories and movies you get where the character is like secretly an all-powerful deity, but they've forgotten. Like, we're slowly remembering that I'm Dr. Manhattan.
Like Sonic Unleashed.
Yeah, it's a real Sonic Unleashed situation.
With Light Gaia and Dark Gaia.
Is that the one where he kisses the human?
No, that's Sonic 06.
Oh, wait, did they just call it Sonic 06?
It was just called Sonic the Hedgehog, but it came out in 2006.
Was there also a game called Sonic the Hedgehog, like the first one?
Yeah, the first one. The fact that it was supposed to be like a soft reboot, but it was so bad, it got basically shut down.
And then now we have Sonic Boom, and it's so good.
Well, now we have like Sonic Frontier, and apparently it is kind of good.
So what is Sonic Boom? Did they just put that atrocity down like it deserved?
Basically.
Oh, okay. How does Shadow play into all of that?
I know Shadow does show up into Sonic Boom, apparently. But he like has gotten no redesign. He's just Shadow.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they were like, he wasn't edgy enough before. So we gave him frosted tips, a lip ring, and a tramp stamp.
I don't think it's possible to make Shadow more edgy.
Tribal tattoos.
Well, yeah, that would do it.
I'm really good at this. I can make things worse.
You know how to make things more 90s edge.
90s and 2000s. If you need new metal, spelled N-U metal.
With an umlaut.
I'm the guy.
All
if you want to get down with the sickness, if you want to know where the bodies are going to hit the floor, you come to me. You hear that? You Slaads.
Oh, dear mercy. I just remember there's a D&D creature that naturally has tribal tattoos on its arms.
It's called the Guy Fieri.
No, it's...
Did somebody once... I'm not going
to... We'll probably have to cover it during the Acererak episode. Gosh dang it.
I was betrayed by the Smash Mouthians. You know why
You're
he fell for it?
You're upsettingly close.
Do you know why he fell for it, Daniel? Because he ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
One of these days we're going to get a camera so you can see my silent...
Both of our faces are red for two different reasons. Oh my god.
It's looked like we've been scratched by
blue Slaad.
By blue Slaads.
Because then we'll turn into red Slaads.
Or green Slaads. Or
green Slaads can do red Slaads?
I don't know what green Slaads can do when it comes to scratching. They mostly use spells.
Alright. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. I've been here, and this is another person. I have a website. Nuclear Heart Podcast is another thing that we do.
Yeah, well,
it's more his wheelhouse where
you get to
I was going to say like he knows more than me on the subject, but here it was pretty 50-50 for some reason.
I'm turning the table.
It's like Limbo, because it shouldn't work, it did.
So how slutty of us. Anyway,
I hate you.
Thanks for listening.
I hate you.